There we go. Okay, so as usual, when we do these training sessions, just as a reminder, because we do put them out onto our YouTube site, the discussions we're having here are related to the Legends of Real Estate. If a realtor from another brokerage pops onto or happens upon this video, please note that all discussions here are related to the Legends of Real Estate. This information is confidential as it relates to the Legends of Real Estate. And if you hear something on here, please do not use it at your brokerage. Or discuss it with your brokers. Anyway, so just as a disclaimer, all the disclaimers. All right, so to your right, right. Okay, there you go. So to your right, I don't know. That's Alan. If it's got short hair. If it's the other side, it's Jen over here. So, part of what I wanted to kind of bring Alan and Jen in for is, things have changed, and I do want to kind of make sure that all of you saw the email related to active contingent status. If I could get thumbs up or just a yes, or if you didn't see it,
Yes.
thanks. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? It's important to acknowledge that that's a piece of information that we aren't used to using because we were not forced, we were given the option to put in the date to go to pending automatically. And anything that's active or active contingent, which is going out to other websites, it containing that active status moniker will mean that if the listing agreement expires, and even if you're under active contingent, the property will move to expired in MLS. This is causing a problem because listing agreements, we recommend 6 months. Some of you are taking 4 months. And the time on the market is longer now, so we have to be aware of that. Sometimes we're getting under contract just prior to the expiration of the listing agreement. And that becomes a concern because if your property goes to expired, what's going to happen? Your seller's probably going to get phone calls. It's going to be very confusing for them. Why am I getting phone calls from other realtors about listing my property when I'm under contract? And sometimes realtors don't read, so they don't look it up and see that it's active contingent in MLS. They just assume that it will now be expired in MLS. So they're looking up at the expired and calling expireds. So you're either going to have to, one, extend the listing, which is a modification to the listing agreement, or you're going to have to move it to pending prior to the expiration of the listing date. So any questions on that to make sure that we're all clear?
Any idea how long that will take MLS to correct it?
It's not a matter of correcting it, it's a matter of changing the guidelines for the data share. Other boards did not have that option, and all the parameters were set to RISO standards when we did the data share. And so it's one of those things that we're either going to have to, or they're either going to have to accommodate locally, which they can do, or they're putting it out to the data share to see if it's something that maybe we could all add to the data share that would be a positive thing for it. So I'm sorry, Bonnie, I have no idea. The data share does meet once a month. We did put it in as a request for tech. So it could be short term, it could be longer term. I'm not really sure, but just something to be aware of. So unfortunately, I don't have a date of when we can expect that change. Okay, other questions about it or acknowledgement about it or anything you want to add about it? Okay. All right. Just be aware. I mean, we're really focusing on listings. We really want to focus on listings. So important, take that 6-month listing, ensure that you have the time to market and position the property and get it under contract. When you're under contract, please be aware right now that there is active contingent or active under contract and pending. If it's active under contract, your seller is agreeing to continue to take showings. If it's pending, your seller is not agreeing to continue to take showings. So it has to be a determining factor that you discuss with the seller to determine what makes the most sense based on the contract that they've accepted and the terms and conditions that they're reviewing. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to question, add, or comment on that? Okay, so part of what we want to make sure that you're looking at is your resources. Resources are so important to you right now. Well, they're always important to you, but as you're revising your buyer consult, as you're revising your seller consult, you have an immense amount of power in the resources that are provided to you, not only through MLS, but also through partnerships. And I did want to try to remind you of two resources in MLS that are very dynamic. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and that are very customizable. One is Domus Analytics. This can give you an idea of what's happening in the market, or if you haven't looked at Domus Analytics in a while, there's your market infographic, which is a nice, clean way to be able to demonstrate some statistics within the market, and they're created to be shareable via social media. So if you're looking at enhancing your social media platforms, this is a dynamic place here. Your market review, which is this piece here, can be printed, can be shared, can be sent out, but it will show you the previous month, or it will show you the 13-month range. So you can see a comparison as to where things are going or what things have been looking at. And you'll see in our general market, and of course this can be customized. This is currently single family, but you can customize it. You can customize the market area. This has got quite a few of our counties in it. It expands pretty far. So you can do some customization of this if you're sending it out to a specific market space. But you can see what's happening with some of the indicators. Red down arrows mean things are a little bit behind. So why 0.3% doesn't mean, or doesn't seem to be a big change overall when you say sold pricing or sold inventory, closed inventory, or pricing, days on market, how fast things are going up. If you look at your micro markets, you're going to see that there are changes, some more dramatic than others. And it's going to be important to understand that these are the types of information that you're going to need to provide to your buyers for negotiation, and specifically to your sellers, because our sellers realistically are not in the same space that we are market-wise. So taking a look at the Domus Analytics is really a great way to clean, clear, icon, pretty, share good information with your customer base, as well as making sure your seller's on board with you. The other piece that's in MLS, which is called your market summary. If you haven't had a chance to work with market summary before, market summary is very nice because it looks at your 12-month rankings. So you can see how things change over time graphically. So this happens to be an area called Southampton, and it's the residential market. You can see where the number of listings are, current number of listings down, where things are in the market, listing prices have flattened out. Sold to list ratio is up compared to where it was. Time on the market is down a little bit. Absorption rate with days on the market down quite a bit. So pricing volume, and then you can see the details of it in a graph. This is another great tool to use when you talk about listings. But why we have our guests and friends here, partners, Alan and Jennifer, we're going to call you a partner anyway, because that's what we want to be. Is because they have some great information and tools to help you when it comes to your listings. You know, what to be prepared for, how you prepare your listing. I know many of you are doing photos, but what are you doing beyond photos? What other resources do you have? And then what's the potential for your seller? What are they doing? Are they selling? Are they also buying? How does that impact it? How does that impact their ability to move forward? How can a valuable lender and their programs help you and help your seller in getting the house sold and sold for the most? So I'm going to give each of these guys a moment to introduce themselves and talk about a little bit. Jen and I have worked together for ever, a long time. And her breadth of knowledge when it comes to our real estate industry, not only from a financial standpoint, but the ability to take things within our industry and apply them is really pretty dynamic, and her new venture has been it's really very interesting. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We're trying to do this kind of like podcast and everybody sees, so go for it.
So I'm Jennifer. My last name's long and difficult, so if you hear people call me JTOS, that works. I tell people I'm a recovering broker. I'm not sure that we actually ever recover, but I'm working at it. I'm also your recovering MLS president, so I'm still looking to recover from that as well. So in order to do that, I kind of moved out of the retail residential real estate space into valuation and valuation technology, looking to try and figure out how to solve that black box that happens to us when we go under contract and we wait for an appraisal. So I've been working in that space now for a while and have learned a great deal and have some tools that I am hoping to share with you and with Alan to help you guys be more competitive in getting listings and smoothing out the process to get it to the closing table once it's under contract.
Cool. And so as part of that, you mentioned that term appraisal.
Yes.
Which is valuation, which
Yes.
is something that we do with our CMAs and challenges. But can you explain a little bit about how the different elements of appraisal work, and then maybe the difference between a hybrid and a desktop?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
So I'm using the word valuation instead of appraisal because the industry is definitely moving into different arenas on how we can establish value for the purposes of a lender to make a lending decision, and also for a homeowner and their real estate agent to help them make decisions with respect to what's a fair sales price, what's a fair offer to make, those types of things. And with that, we have come up with some technology that's designed to really take value to a higher level and reduce the amount of subjective influence over it. You know, bias has been a big conversation at Fannie and Freddie and certainly at the VA and elsewhere, in trying to remove bias from the process and inject a much more objective process by which they get to the market data to support that value conclusion. And I know all of us as real estate agents were kind of like, well, why didn't they look at this comp and why didn't they look at that comp? And that, you know, the industry heard you, and they're making changes in how they use technology to bring all of that data in to be considered in the background of how that value report is established. So
Cooper's in the room.
That was the dog.
I'll blame it on the
Or
dog.
was it?
Or was it Alan? Okay, cool.
Jennifer.
I know, right? I know my guests and everything. No. You guys have probably heard words thrown around, and if you haven't, you will, about desktop appraisals, property data collection, and hybrid appraisals. And it's causing some people who are unfamiliar with the terms to, I'm going to say, nicely freak out. And the homeowners are subsequently not being prepared because the real estate agents don't necessarily understand what that process looks like either. So to answer your question, Clark, a desktop appraisal is where the appraiser actually never goes to the property, which I know scares everybody. Like, oh my God, if they're not there, how can they do an appraisal? They're doing that appraisal because somebody else has been sent to the property, and they're called property data collectors that go through a pretty rigorous set of rules to collect data about the property that goes into, I'm going to call it Big Brother's huge database. And Alan can back me up here that Fannie and Freddie have this incredible amount of data in the collateral underwriting system. So they pull in the data that's collected on site for your particular property, and they combine it with all of the data that you have no idea that they have that's in this collateral underwriting system. And that data becomes made available to the appraiser, who can then look at photos, a digital twin of the property, all of that data, all of the market data, all of the data that the GSEs have on file to help them support the analysis to get to your value conclusion. It's a less expensive way to get the appraisal done. It's a more objective way. And as recently as this past fall, there was studies shown over the last 2 years where they compare desktop to traditional, you know, where you have the appraiser with their clipboard and their galoshes out stomping your property, that the difference in valuation done either way was less than 0.1%. So you're gonna see a continued push to find more efficient ways to bring that data to the appraiser so they can do what they do best, which is actually evaluate the data, not collect it. Does that help?
That helps immensely because I think you're right. I think that there's a fear when we hear, desktop, that the accuracy is going to be off and that it's going to be more susceptible to error.
Mhm.
And so there's a concern that the appraisal either won't come in at a good price or a good point.
The hybrid answers some of that concern for folks, because I know if I were you and I was sitting in your shoes, the first thing that would come to mind is, well, but my property's special. Right? My seller's property is special because they did this or they did that. And there is a fail-safe or an alternative inside of this, which is the hybrid appraisal, which is where there is an inspection done of the property that can take into consideration those things. So if all the data comes in and there's outliers for one reason or another, they can order an inspection. They can order a hybrid appraisal instead. And I think you're going here in April, so everybody get ready. In April, there will be an announcements coming from Fannie and Freddie about the widespread adoption of the hybrid appraisal approach as a way to ease us further and further towards full desktop.
Okay. So Jessica, it looks like you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
I do. So, Jen, you stated that the desktop appraisal is determined based on when another appraiser may have come out to the property and did all of the assessing of the property. How can we determine when that was completed?
So I want to make a correction. That data is collective data from a variety of sources that's in a huge database that's used to support additional data collected on a timely basis by a property data collector.
Not that another
appraiser did that.
And I think and I need to give Alan a chance to introduce himself also, but I want to take that appraisal piece over to Alan in a second. But as right now, I believe it's only FHA and VA where the appraisal sticks for 30
VA.
or 45. VA only.
Yeah.
VA only in 45 days or 30.
60.
60.
VA 60. The case number for FHA sticks with the property. So you have to have that transferred if the one loan doesn't happen and the next new lender comes on, and then you have to have that case number transferred. But it's not the appraisal.
It's not the appraisal or the appraiser.
Yeah.
Every time an appraisal is submitted, there's data that's extracted from the report that goes into this huge database that allows them to pull that data back in to help support the current data collection to see if there's variations in it. If it had said that there was 14 windows and the inspection or the report that came back from property data collection says, oh no, there's 18, that would be a flag that the current appraiser has to mediate. Why is there a difference in this information? And the fun part about this for you guys, and it's interesting to see how customers are reacting to this, is there's a third piece, and it's called the inspection-based waiver and a flat-out waiver, where sometimes you'll submit and Alan will send you back a note that your loan's approved that value because without an appraisal. You got a waiver.
I had a closing on Friday with no appraisal on a single family home because their Fannie had enough data of other homes in the immediate area. They said the sales price was sufficient.
Yeah, they're willing to take the risk based on that aggregation of data that they have from all these resources over the years. So that's a good thing for your consumer. They don't have to pay for an appraisal.
Okay, so here's the next person. First is, Alan has been one of our prize partners for 2 years now, and we're grateful to have him on board. Not only based on the fact that his breadth of knowledge is so strong, but also the fact that who he's working with, and he's very selective about who he works with, company wise, not you guys. No, he's selective. That didn't come out right. Anyway,
It's funny. It's still funny.
Anyway, the amount of programs that he has available that he can not only
I love all y'all.
that he can discuss and help, but as it gears towards. So, Alan, at least please, if people haven't met you, just please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alan, Aries.
Taurus. Oh, no, Aries. Okay.
I like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
Oh dear.
All right, so home valuation is a big topic. It plays a big part in lending in general, but it also plays a big part in our Planet's Purchase Edge programs, which helps a current homeowner buy a new home without having to sell their current home. More about that later, but the take a step into my time machine. I first started in this business in 1994, right out of college.
College.
And back then, you picked up the phone. If you needed you needed an appraisal, you picked up the phone and called your favorite appraiser and told him what you needed. And he said, okay, fax me over the order. And so you had to fill it out by hand and send it through the fax machine, and it made all those noises. And then when you got it took a couple weeks, and when you got the appraisal report in the mail, it had hard copy photos stapled or high-tech double-sided tape onto the order, and it was like poster board paper. So the thing weighed a ton. And sometimes if Eckerd's photo center was on a backlog, it took a little longer for him to get his pictures developed.
The appraisers who had Polaroids were.
Yeah, Polaroids sometimes in a pinch. But today, fast forward now 31 years, you can't call an appraiser directly. You can't even talk to an appraiser.
That's a misnomer.
You can't tell them what target to hit, and everything's digital, which is nice because we can get appraisals back pretty quickly, and we don't have to wait for the Eckerd Photo Center. But the home valuation piece is a big part of it. Big data is a big part of it. Fannie and Freddie who control most of the money in the mortgage market. This all are streamlining, trying to modernize the home valuation process. And they're going to make it a little bit easier. It's going to be a shift in how we do business. But it's really positive. It's going to be a good thing. It's going to lower costs for the consumer, which is nice. And all this started, why are they even doing this? Why do they want to disrupt the appraisal industry? Well, it all started with COVID. Appraisers didn't want to go into people's house. People didn't want appraisers in their house. The germs and the fear back then prompted Fannie. They didn't want the mortgage market, and rates were super low, but things were getting held up because of the appraisal. So they shifted to these AVMs, or automated valuation, like an online appraisal, and now it's transformed in a good way into a more thoughtful process. Anyways, that was like one big long sentence.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Alan, you made a super good point there. Is that
Eckerd's?
Yeah.
Eckerd's, yeah.
What's
And
it?
I'm not going to tell you.
What's an Eckerd's?
Pretty
So
nice.
I've been doing this for a couple of years more than you, and I can remember looking at a review on a loan, and the fax paper had faded, so you couldn't.
You had to read it fast, or the ink would
go
disappear.
But the property data collection piece of it, the appraisal, it's kind of a misnomer. We also started moving towards modernization because we don't have enough appraisers. People are not getting into the business.
A lot of them got out during COVID. Yeah.
A lot of them got out. They're retiring. The average age of an appraiser is in their late 50s.
So old.
I know. I'm not even going to go there because, I don't want to reveal too much. But so the opportunity for them to be able to do more work, it's kind of like you guys having a transaction coordinator so you can spend more time on what your highest and best is. The concept of the data collection being separated from the valuation is a similar concept that allows the appraiser to spend more of their time doing what they're really good at, which is analyzing the data as opposed to collecting it. Mm-hmm. But saving the consumer money, this program is expanding widely to allow you, your homeowner, your customer, you work with them to leverage these programs into creating permanent home profiles. You can use them to negotiate better home insurance rates. You can use them to get quotes from third parties on whether you should renovate or sell. that property data itself becomes a value to the homeowner to know what's in their property and use it to help them get better terms for other things that they do to manage their property over its lifetime.
See, and Alan mentioned the AVM, and I think that's another one of those things that we get concerned about. We've got AVMs in RPR, we've got AVMs in Zillow, we've got AVMs that are just strewn throughout. And those AVMs are, automated valuation models that are based on algorithms that are based on rough closed transactions. So an AVM that you're looking at, and that's why we say it's great if you can get an idea through RPR of where they think the value may be. The challenge becomes, what comps did that AVM use? And without the mindset that you have and understanding you have of the market, how real is that AVM, or how off is that AVM? And so that's in our real estate world, when we're putting valuations on properties, presenting to sellers these ranges, and they're either feeling like they're too high, too low. I'm sorry, never too high, always too low, or the range is not quite accurate. You go in and you spend time researching, understanding, looking at the properties, substituting properties, possibly making adjustments on those properties to have a more realistic range recommendation based on other support from AVMs. These types of AVMs that both Jen and Alan are talking about are much more thorough because of the data collection that occurs prior to establishing the AVM through this desktop process. Would that be inaccurate?
That would be inaccurate. The AVM is the first piece of it. And then there's humans who are trained in how to evaluate this, who actually take the results of the AVM and tweak that by saying, okay, the AVM stack ranked, this is the best comp. And the appraiser's looking at it going, it's not because of this, this, and this. And they can make those adjustments. And you guys and the homeowners have a new process. Alan may kill me for telling you about this, but there is a new process for reconsideration of value.
Oh, no, I love recon.
Yeah.
Recon.
You can have reconsideration of value now where the appraiser actually has to respond with their justification for the comps they selected or any adjustments they made that help them arrive at their value. Because I mean, I know this, I've been in your shoes where you have a homeowner who's like, that's not gonna come to my house because my house is special. So and you can go back and send those questions with real support into the appraiser, and the appraiser can tell you why or why not in that scenario. And each lender, and I'm sure Alan has their process on how you can do reconsideration of value. So you do have an opportunity. I don't want everyone to walk away from it thinking, oh my gosh, we have no input into this process. There are fail safes along the way where you do have the opportunity to draw attention if there's something out of the ordinary that you don't feel was considered in the process.
100%.
I like recon a lot better than contest.
Reconsideration of value.
And is it speak from your side as a lender, what's that process involve?
Paperwork, lots of paperwork.
All right.
No, it's pretty simple. Usually it's everyone's wants the transaction to succeed, right? Sometimes you have to meet in the middle, and if the appraisal comes in low, anyone can request a reconsideration of value. Usually it has to come from the borrower, the buyer, and to support a higher value, we need additional comps that the appraiser didn't use, or specific reasons why the comps that he did use aren't really comparable to the property. So, appraisers sometimes can be lazy. Appraisers sometimes get a lot of orders and they're in a volume business and they rush through things, and I can't tell you the last time I saw an appraisal that didn't have some kind of typo on it, a misspelled word. So it's there as a backstop to make sure that we're getting accurate data. We had one with a Legends transaction a few months ago. It was on a condominium, and the appraiser, we thought, wasn't even going to consider it, but we turned it in and we got an extra. The appraisal was 15,000 low, and we got an extra 7,000 in value.
I mean, appraisers are people too.
Yep,
You know, and the appraisal management company has processes and the lender has processes where you can speak to them.
Yep.
Provided you actually have data and they'll respond to you. Most of them are pretty reasonable. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of QC that the report goes through to try and catch, you know, common errors and that kind of thing.
yep,
And AI is the newest and greatest way to catch a lot of that so that it prevents them from missing obvious comps.
yeah,
Oh,
yep. One more thing about the appraisal waiver or online valuations, that when Fannie or Freddie tell us that we don't have to have an appraisal, it's not a hard and fast rule, it's an option. So if the buyer is told, hey, you don't have to have an appraisal on this property, but if you really want one, we can go ahead and do it. Otherwise, you're gonna save, you know, $500 or $600 by not having one. And sometimes they still say, I want an appraisal. Okay, great. Here's the payment link and we'll go ahead and get it set up. So they have the option to go ahead and order a full appraisal. But Fannie and Freddie and are offering it as a cost savings and a streamline to the process.
Alan, what happens if they choose to do that and the appraisal comes in low?
Then funny, you should ask, Jay Cox. Then we can go through the recon process. Reconsideration of value process, yes.
Do we need to be worried about timing with when we do a reconsideration of value?
Timing is definitely reviewed, but it's always good to have the appraisal in hand, you know, before, you know, at least 3 days before closing. That's cutting it really close. But it can take longer to do the process and extend the closing date. But normally everyone's pulling the rope in the same direction and everyone agrees that we just want to make the transaction work. And if it takes an extra day, it takes an extra day. But most of the time, our appraisal department is really good at reviewing these because we have our own internal appraisal department. They review it to make sure that what I have turned in is legit. I'm not just telling a story. And that I've submitted all the, you know, checked all the boxes to get it done. And then they take it to the appraisal vendor and say, hey, this appraiser who's on your staff kind of bungled this one, help us out. And then, you know, so it doesn't go straight from me to the appraiser. It goes through a couple layers of management to make sure that, you know, we're not just trying to pull a fast one, to make sure it's a legit request. And 9 times out of 10, it ends up in the appraiser's desk and say, you need to sharpen your pencil on this one.
So I have a question for everybody who's watching. How many of you guys have had a transaction become problematic because you couldn't get loan approval inside the contract term?
Couldn't get loan
Couldn't get what?
approval?
You couldn't close because you were either waiting on the appraisal or waiting on the appraisal as part of the loan approval to be able to move forward with closing. Has anybody had that experience?
Tony,
Not since I've been using Alan.
Not since you've been using Alan, which is a good answer. It does not happen when you're using Alan.
Lynette had thumbs up.
Yeah.
Anybody, you can put it in chat if you'd like. Moved it over.
The reason I asked the question is that there's real economic impact
Yeah.
if a closing date has to get pushed. And for all of us who were fortunate enough to be selling real estate during COVID, and you couldn't get an appraisal, and the appraisal time period was running 6 to 8 weeks, and you were
And they were
paying,
charging double.
they were charging double. If you wanted a rush, oh my goodness, you better, you know, be
Strap in.
strap in, right? So part of that is where this origination, modernization comes from, Buckle, is to help you guys be able to have that appraisal process started earlier so that the appraiser can get their work done quicker inside of a time frame that works for your contract. You know, every seller who's selling wants to know that their deal is going to close so that they can go ahead and make an offer and feel confident in their next move. You know, the daisy chain that happens when something falls apart has real economic value. So some of the products that Alan and I are talking about allow you to collect the data to support the appraisal earlier in the transaction. And I would go so far as to say, in fact, collecting it at list as part of your marketing procedures. And we can talk a little bit about that.
No, and I think that's a good transition. I mean, you're talking modernization of the appraisal process.
Mhm.
You're talking understanding the appraisal process, being able to do recon on it. You're talking about having the agent more prepared, using the resources that we have available to us to tell a story to our sellers at the onset,
Mhm.
so that we're now, all on the same page rather than having to take an overpriced listing, and with the potential of it not selling, or to have it sit longer, or to
Fall apart at the end because it didn't appraise.
or to have an angry customer.
Yes.
I mean, you're not going to get a lot of referrals from angry customers. So being able to talk about that, let's talk about kind of where a seller would be. So Alan, from the lending side, talk to us about where you think sellers often are in this process now. I mean, we've come off of a time that was a more balanced market, where you were looking at sellers anticipating getting, offers and then moving forward, to a time when sellers just were getting multiple offers. Now we're coming into a somewhat more balanced time frame. So sellers' opinions or thoughts or understanding of the market sometimes are a little off, especially when it comes to listing, whether it be price or time, or valuation. So price, time, and money are the things that we work with. What are you seeing with sellers currently that are some stumbling blocks?
The ones I've talked to lately that have a home to sell think it's still a seller's market. They think the inventory is still COVID levels and their house is going to sell like that for premium price, when in fact the reverse might be true. So they're having a hard time adjusting mentally and emotionally to today's market, and having a realist. So having expert realtor to help them grasp what today's market is a big benefit to them. If they have a house to sell before they buy their new house, they're still competing with cash. What was that?
Like your program.
Oh, yes. So if they have a house to sell and they want to be competitive in the market, because the market is still, what's the percentage of cash in the market? Is it still around 25-30%?
It's around 28.
30, yeah.
30% cash buyer. So how do you compete if you have a house to sell and you're going to offer a contingency contract based on, I have to sell my house, but I bought my house brand new in 2021 and paid a premium because it was COVID and I paid over price for it. But
that doesn't even need to just be new homes.
Right. It could be any home, but how do I, and I don't have the cash without selling the house to put down on the new house. So what do? If I write a contingent contract, how long is the contingency? Am I going to get my house sold in 30 days? Probably not. That was a fill in the blank. Thank you, Jay Toss. So what's the plan for that house? Where am I moving to? Am I buying another resale home, or am I buying from a builder? Do I have the ability to pay 2 house payments? Do I have money in the bank to put down without selling my house? Where's that down payment coming from? Is it cash? Is it a gift from the bank of mom and dad? Is it a bridge loan on my current property? Do I have the income to handle 3 loans? These are all critical questions to people that have to move, or just want to move. What I've seen in the last 3 weeks, I've talked to 4 different people who bought new construction from a builder in 2020, 21, closed in 20, paid 21 prices, closed in 2022, and have buyer's remorse.
Mhm.
They had to move quick without thinking it through because of the inventory was what, 2,500? Did we go below 2,000 during COVID?
Oh, yeah. We were at 1,600.
1,600, and now we're up over 10,000 again, right?
Yeah.
So the market has shifted, and people that have the buyer's remorse that overpaid and didn't think it through now want to make a change because they want it to improve their lifestyle, which is fine. But they have to have a more realistic view of what their current house is worth, the one that they bought but don't really like. The lot line's too small, the backyard backs up to a telephone pole or something like that, you know what I mean?
People were willing to take a little bit different. Maybe we're willing to make exceptions in late 20,
A lot of
21 into
compromising.
22. And it wasn't just new construction. I mean, yes, new construction was being eaten up. But let's not forget that even resale homes were being eaten up when we were having 5, 10 offers on a property. So all of those pieces really are influential in how the market has shifted and changed. So part of what we want to talk about this is because we know that listing and being a listing agent becomes integral in what your business model is, because when you have the inventory, you have opportunity to sell. But also to find out what resources do we now need to be using that we weren't using before, or that we need to consider using in order to be able to ensure that our sellers have realistic expectations that are that we are doing our job in all the ways possible. And what Alan is saying is, is accurate. If a seller is selling, chances are they're moving. So if they're moving, are they staying local or are they moving away? Either way, is their intention to purchase or not to purchase? And this includes military, which is huge for us, which is every couple of years with these moves, they come into a market, they purchase as an investment opportunity, and then hope to be able to sell at a profit to be able to purchase where they move next. It becomes really important that we have a strong understanding of what their goals are. Bonnie had asked a question, and may I assume we will go to desktop appraisals automatically? Does this reduce the buyer's costs? The cost of the appraisal? Does the buyer know about this? Does he care?
Well, I'll answer some of that and then let
Alan's
Alan
gonna
answer
guess.
some of it. Desktop appraisals are ordered by your lender. The property and the transaction have to qualify. So there has to be a certain down payment being made, and it has to be a certain type of property, and those parameters are changing, and I would encourage you to check with your lender on what their policies are with respect to desktop. Desktop absolutely should be making the cost lower to your customer. If it's not, I would be asking the lender why not. And does the buyer know about this? Not typically, unless you're having that conversation with your lender and educating your homeowner, which I encourage you strongly to do, because when the property data collector comes out to the property instead of an appraiser, and you haven't prepared the homeowner to understand what that means, that's where sometimes there can be conflicts. And it comes back and shows poorly for you as the agent for not having set their expectations on what is a property data collector and how does that work. And one of the other things that Clark was talking about is with all of this modernization, there's now opportunity for listing agents as a differentiator, as a competitive advantage, and as a professional to order what I'm going to call it a pre-listing appraisal. That's not what we actually call it behind the scenes, but it's a pre-listing appraisal. In the past, we used to have to order a full-on total for, and it was a $700 or $800 commitment on the part of me as the listing agent to get an appraisal before I went to market. That was a little bit of a tough sell for me to invest that much money to get an appraisal. But if I can invest $200 to get an appraisal, that appraisal is a limited scope, and I don't want to confuse anyone. It cannot yet, and big emphasis on the word yet, it cannot yet be used to then support a loan transaction. But a $200 investment to give your seller or your buyer, if you're counseling a buyer on an offer, really high confidence level that what they're doing is correct, because that comes back with a broad market analysis. And we all know that the market's shifting.
Yeah.
And the seller still thinks that it's a seller's market. And while we have micro markets that have different movement going on over the broad market, that appraisal is going to give you back that information in a much more comprehensive and detailed way than you can do in, say, RPR. Plus, it gives you the additional benefit of having the third party sign on it. You know, it's kind of like when my kids were little, if I wanted them to learn anything, I had to have their coach tell them. They wouldn't hear it from me. Sellers can be the same way. You can be telling them the same information, but when an appraiser signs off on it, all of a sudden now it's legitimate. So all I'm suggesting to you is there are additional opportunities here with these modernized products that you can use to support your business in creating, you know, more value for your customer, either on either side, actually.
Well, and you bring it, I mean, value was my word for 2024. And that's what we're gonna, I mean, that's what we have to focus on when we're doing our buyer presentations, our seller presentations, is what value are we bringing? If we have a resource that we can tag into that will help us create value, or programs that we're aware of that will help us create value for the person across the table, that makes our job, or makes us much more invaluable in the transaction and much more valuable to the process itself. So to jump into that a little bit, tell us a little bit about how your product works and what it does.
And I'm going to tell you
as
how
a
it works in
resource.
connection with Alan's product, because we've got something really cool here.
Wait, there's more.
There's more. Wait, there's more.
You know what, before you go, let me just make sure what Jessica's question is.
Maybe
Since,
this section is going to lead into my question. So as we are being informed of these desktop appraisals, where can we find the resource to provide that for our sellers or buyers?
I'm going to give you that answer. First of all, the only answer that I'm going to give you right now, right here, is call Alan. Your lender can help you navigate that. I know for a fact that Alan and his group support and look to do desktops when it's appropriate and available to help save the consumer money and get you guys to the closing table faster.
And that's for a buyer or a seller or both?
Both.
Both.
Great. Thank you so
That was
much.
good. We were consistent. That was good.
Yeah, I like it. We
And the
didn't even prepare that in advance.
And the cool part, especially with Jennifer's product, is it takes the weight off your shoulders. So it's not you giving them a CMA that you produce saying, here's your home value, and they're disappointed. And now they're looking at you with a disappointed puppy face. But now we can shift all that to Jennifer, and you're the resource that is helping them make their decisions, and it's not coming directly from you. So you're kind of off the hook, right?
Well, and I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, the other piece of that is, this is not to say that we don't want you doing CMAs and we don't want you taking a look at what the market is. You need to be as informed, if not more informed. Well, you need to be more informed than the seller and or the buyer. The challenge is they're getting a lot of misinformation. You have good information, they're getting misinformation. So how do we clarify that misinformation? Well, that's when we do a bona fide CMA. I think that guidelines, something like an RPR, are great for direction, are great for a baseline. Your CMA, which should indicate or should take into consideration more effective comp analysis, are that piece. And then being able to layer that with potentially something else that further solidifies what you've done is only a way to get a stronger positioning with your seller. So as part of that, I want to share, we do want to share the products that exist, not only so you're aware, but so that you can start either evaluating them to include in your seller consultation, or how you would include these in your seller consultation, or at least be aware so that you have more knowledge of market space. So share with a little, and
Sure.
when you're ready, we can share the screen,
Okay.
whatever you think.
Well, I'm going to say a couple things. One of them might blow your mind here for a second. The pre-listing appraisal that I was talking about, you know, when I used to wear my broker hat, if you were looking for a listing, to invest $200 to get a listing to help your seller price it properly so that you can actually get it sold, is an investment that is probably worth making.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off for 1 second. And I think this is where we fall short. Prior to COVID, we were willing to invest minimal.
Zero.
During COVID, we were willing to invest zero. We are out of COVID. We're in a different market. We need to understand that part of what we have to do to get the business is to invest in the business. So what's your return? If I'm getting a $500,000 listing and my goal is to invest $500, that's great. If I'm getting $1.5 million listing and my goal is to invest $600, that's great. You need to be prepared for that. Professional photos, pre-listing appraisals,
All of those things, yeah.
video, all of these things are important.
Floor plans.
And let me just say, other agents, and if you're not doing this, you may want to consider it as part of your listing presentation. Other agents will look to see if they know that they're in a competitive situation. They will look to see what agents might be being interviewed if they don't already know, and try and use what you have done to say how they do things better. So know that what you put out there can be used potentially against you if they're, photos that maybe, are cockeyed or kind of funny or bad lighting or whatever. Someone could potentially use those against you. You don't want that. But you need to be able to say up front to your sellers what you're willing to invest and what you're willing to do. Sorry.
No, I mean, I agree with Clark, and I mean, I'll flip it to the other side, is you also need to be able to explain to your buyer why your consultation with the buyer is worth the fee that you're going to charge. And some of that is to help them understand how to bid, what's a fair price, make sure that they don't go with buyer's remorse in that negotiation. So having access to an affordable pre-listing, it could be called a purchase appraisal as well, helps you position them and allows you to compete, particularly when you have unique properties and things like that. So I'll stop talking about that. But the piece that I will say, it's gonna blow your mind here, is that right now, you can't have an appraisal done at list and have it count for the loan.
Right.
I'm going to predict that inside of the next 18 months, that will change.
That'd be awesome.
And that you will be able to have an appraisal done at list and have it count. So the reason I say that is
I'm writing this down.
he's quoting me.
18 months.
The reason that I'm saying that is because my company does a lot of work with Fannie and Freddie in pilot programs. And the whole desktop appraisal is moving the valuation process up earlier in the transaction so that you have more confidence in the value when you're out there transacting as a consumer. So the desktop appraisal, the data set that Alan and his team needs to use to create and provide to the appraiser for them to do your desktop appraisal can be collected at list. And it can then be sent to the appraiser after you're under contract.
It only makes sense. Why would we need to recreate the wheel if it's already been created,
So while the appraisal itself can't be done, the data that's needed to do the appraisal can be collected at list. And the fun part about that, and this is where I'll have you go to the thing, is that in creating the technology that allows the appraisals to do that appraisal from their desk using the data collection file, it has created an incredible opportunity for a cascade of additional marketing materials that are created at the time that data is collected. That's great. This is an example of a property, and it's fun for me because it's my ex-husband's house, where in order to list it, went out and did property data collection. And the property data collector came and did their work. And what came back from it, can I move the mouse?
You do this.
Thank you.
I'm gonna shift this over to you.
All right, thank you. And I hope you guys can see this.
Can someone confirm that they can
Can
see?
you guys see this?
Yeah, that's an ugly house.
Yeah, well, no comment. I did say ex-husband, yes, okay. That being said, what you're seeing here is how do I make this a big screen? Make the whole screen.
Make it bigger, Clark.
Get the whole screen. There we go. Okay. So what you're seeing here, guys, is the listing page. So if you were to use class valuation, or you have another option to go through remark, and you order your marketing package. This marketing package is going to send a property data collector there. The property data collector is going to do everything they need to create a file that we're going to hold on to that you can later give to your lender to order the desktop appraisal. In the meantime, you're going to get back A 3D, you're gonna get a listing page, which is something you can actually host as a landing page for your listing. You're gonna get a property report page, which is what I'm showing you now, that gives you all of the data about the property and a 3D tour. This 3D tour should be familiar. I hate to use the word, but I will. It's like Matterport on steroids because it has to meet appraisal level standards. So it's just standard Matterport doesn't necessarily meet the requirements that an appraiser has to have to be able to see every element in the home. But when we do property data collection, we get that level of a 3D tour. So you can go in, it takes you in, it'll look just like any other 3D tour that you have. And I'm trying to make Clark's computer work here. A lot of wood, you have no idea. I'm not even gonna comment on that. Yeah, exactly. But it allows you to zoom in 360 degrees. This part over to the left that I hope you all can see where it has the little dots, this should look familiar to you. It allows you to share it out. So you can, the little share button that I'm pointing to up at the top, you can share this 3D tour with whomever you wish. You can put it in the MLS, you can do all those fun things. So you get the 3D tour as part of it. You also get this list of everything that's in the property, and it tells you what your GLA is, your unfinished, your finished. But then it gives you, these are floor plans for all the buildings, all the structures on the property.
Wow.
And some of you may be aware and some of you may not be aware, but the first MLS, which I also predict this will be a cascade effect, has declared that every listing has to have a floor plan. And this was New Mexico, MLS came out with that.
Wow.
And we anticipate seeing that rule proliferate across MLSs.
This house is in New Mexico?
No, this house is not.
Oh.
And there are lots of floor plan generators. Some of them are free, some of them are not free. Ours is just part of the package. You get this because the appraiser has to have a floor plan and it has to meet appraisal level standards. It has to be ANSI compliant. The free floor plan generator that you get from Home Depot or somebody else is not ANSI compliant and cannot be used to support an appraisal. So you get this as part of it. And you can see this property is fairly complicated. It gives you all above and below grade. Then
this takes away the human error in calculating square footage, right? The GLA.
Yes.
When the appraiser takes his little roller measuring thing through the house.
Correct.
It never matches what is in public records as square footage.
I would say that is accurate as well.
And the GLA from the lending standpoint is usually the biggest factor when determining value.
And it's also the biggest surprise to the homeowner when it comes back. And the homeowner's like, well, what are you talking about? My house is 4,200 square feet. And the appraiser's like, no, sorry, it's 3,800.
He didn't cool.
He didn't do, and they don't understand the difference between what counts as GLA and what doesn't.
Above grade.
Above grade. He didn't cooled. These floor plans that come in, which I didn't show you, you get them in black and white, and then we have GLA. It highlights which square footage counts as GLA, so that if you were to have a discrepancy, you can easily explain to your seller, buyer, or anybody else in the process why the square footage didn't count in the appraisal.
That's cool.
Then we have every single room. We're giving you the square footage, the floor material, and all the measurements, so that you no longer have to ask and answer the question, will my truck fit in the garage? Because the answer will be right here, and you will know what the height is. We get that, see, garage, 8 foot 4 inches.
There's so many places to
So
go
many
there.
places to go with that.
That's a lot of wood.
We also give you the total. So the wood flooring in this property, in the floor, you can see how much of it was tile, how much of it was wood, how much of it was carpet, how much of it was concrete. This actually can help you in negotiating and talking to people, because every buyer thinks that it costs way more to replace something than it does. And knowing how much carpet, you can take that and say, I need 159 square feet of carpet and get a quote for that, so that you can get a real idea of what it would be if your buyer hates the carpet or if the seller needs to replace.
Yeah, I was gonna say, or if it's something that the seller wants to, do you want the seller to at least offer a concession for, or would see if the seller would consider doing prior to listing?
Well, then the fun part is that they give it to you room by room. So these are all the photographs, which, because I didn't mention this as part of the package, not only do you get the 3D tour, you also get HDR photography. So when you click down into the living room, this is a photograph from there. You can explore the 3D tour, look at the photos from the living room, but it's going to tell me all the dimensions and elevations of the living room. So if I kind of go in on this, you're going to see all of the dimensions, windows, doors, floor space. And my favorite, we put this in here because it's the number one asked question is repainting. Buyers always hate whatever color the seller has and they want to repaint.
Yeah.
And every buyer thinks it costs $10,000 to have the house repainted. And every seller thinks that their paint's the best ever and they shouldn't have to change it.
Mhm.
So this at least is giving you, here's how much primer you would need, and here's how much paint you would need, and here's what the total is for that room.
Wow.
So, gee, I don't know, Mr. Barr, you really only need 5 gallons here. I don't really think that's a $10,000 price concession.
That's cool.
If you
negotiate.
had an appraisal issue that came in and said you needed to do something about windows, we're giving you all the windows, all the measurements so that you can go and have that quoted. That is one of the things that takes up so much time in being able to get to contract, is being able to get that information. So we give it to you for every room. I'm not going to go through every room, but then I'm going to go down and show you what else we have. Hopefully I'm clicking on the right thing.
I think so.
We have, I'm just going to pick one. I have no idea what I'm picking. There we go.
Do we want-
We tag every asset that's available. It's not, that the property data collector can get to.
Double oven.
Double oven in here, and we know that the make and model. We know what its useful life is. We know how much life is remaining on it. And sometimes, if we have the information in the database, we'll even give you the user's manual.
Oh,
But this is great information for you to have as a seller. This is great information to be able to share with a buyer. This lets you negotiate things and knowing what you're negotiating for. Also lets you kind of double check what the home inspection comes back with.
Mhm.
And if you are going to negotiate for the replacement of the air handler, you know what was there. So you don't get the low-end version of a replacement. You can actually ask specifically because you know something about the property.
so it's even rare that a home inspector will go into this much detail.
It is rare that a home inspector will go into this much detail. Ours is telling you what it is. The home inspector is supposed to tell you whether or not it's functioning. Our product does not get into that piece of it.
Correct.
We're telling you what the manufacturer's expected remaining useful life is. This is also the information that allows you to renegotiate home insurance, guys, home property insurance. And I know that this is a horrible example, but it is exceedingly timely, which is that all of our folks that are experiencing loss in California,
Yeah.
there's policy provisions that you're supposed to get an upfront cash payment that's equal to a certain percentage of your belongings in the home. But if you can't show them what the belongings were, you have nothing to base that insurance claim on. If you have this home profile done, then this is yours forever.
That would be perfect for Florida hurricane.
Florida hurricane,
Flooded.
Yeah.
and that is another use for this, that you are now creating a value for your customer, that they get to keep this.
Mhm.
And you can gift it to the buyer as a closing gift. So now they have all the information about their property
Ooh.
to use going forward. So there's all those fun things. Then there's the HDR photography. You get all the pictures. These are done, and I'm obviously not going to go through all of them. This is not done. They're not put in any order for you. You can put them in any order you want in the MLS. You can move them around however you want. The video is unbranded. Ownership of the photographs and the tour belong to the listing agent who paid for them. So you can use them again. You can gift them to someone else. There's no photographer that you're going to, have arguments with. And
That's
if I,
great.
yes, it's a wonderful piece of this. And then if I can get back, I can't see the X.
Where are we trying to go?
I want to go back a page. I'm gonna try the arrow.
Maybe.
Because what I haven't shown you, it's not on this page. Okay, so the listing page, you guys, instead of, I don't want to wait, I want to be mindful of your time. This is the property report page. And at the bottom of it, you can print out a property report that lists all the measurements of the rooms and everything, which, by the way, is a really nice seller's disclosure attachment, addendum. We have people putting those in the MLS under the other documents. So when your homeowner says, well, I have no idea, how old my water tank is. Yeah, we kind of do.
Mhm.
And we can give a lot of additional information. most of the listing agents that are using this product don't put the property page that I just showed you out for everyone. That's for you to share pieces of it as you so see fit. But we also give you a listing page, which is a consumer forward facing link that you can use as a landing page. And if you order the package that includes it, you get a 2 to 3 under 3 minutes. So it can be anywhere from 1:50 to 3 minutes, fly through a video tour for social media purposes.
Okay, so you can use that as a social media, you can use that as a landing page for a property specific website.
Correct. And then you can take the fly through video and use that for social media ads. So that it, the videos that play in your Insta and wherever else that you're putting it. So we're giving you 3D tour, fly through tour, HDR photography, floor plans, asset tags, and we've collected the data for the appraisal. So now you have all your marketing and you can market it as being appraisal ready. You get an offer in and you can ask them, does your lender support desktop appraisal? And if they say no, say, well, here's 3 lenders I work with, or here's one lender that we really like that we work with that does, and it can save your customer money. We already have the data file for it. And by the way, we want to close in 15 days, not 30, not 45. Because if you have the data for the desktop appraisal and you can give it to the lender, the turnaround time on a desktop appraisal is 48 hours. So now you can condense the time period that it takes to get from contract to close, and there's real economic value there. And in Alan's world, he has a product that's going to help you do that even better.
Yeah.
And if we collect that data up front for him, then he's going to be able to tell you about how he can help you. And I want to give the
You
mic
were
to
gonna say something.
That's fine. Is that, thank you, Jen.
Well, I wanted you to be aware of that because we're really pushing for you to have a standard that you set with your listings, not only from us as a company and what we would like to position, how we would like to position our listings in our company itself, branding, but also you're already investing in photos, hopefully, and or videos and or other, floor plans. This is kind of taking it on to the next step, and I'm sorry, I forgot what the cost is.
It's $5.99.
Okay, so $600 versus if you're spending $250 versus 600, there is a lot more in here. Plus, if you're able to get the listing, potentially waiver it or put it under coming soon, that gives you that time to, I would probably say, get it, waiver the listing, get this piece going so that you have greater information, more detailed, more accurate information to create the seller's property disclosure, to create your verbiage on your listing, to create a more concise floor plan, and to maybe create a stronger marketing piece. Do coming soon and then go for it. But
we do the whole thing. It's fulfillment. You no longer have to manage the appraiser and the not the appraiser. Well, but the appraiser. You don't have to manage the appraiser. You don't have to manage the photographer. You don't have to manage the videographer. You don't have to do the floor plan, because most of the floor plans make you, the agent or the homeowner, walk through the property. All of it's done one-stop shopping.
so what's the turnaround time on something like that?
It's 48 hours from when we complete the property data collection.
Oh.
And I usually say 2 business days, just to give you a little bit. It's 48 hours. And the reality is that we also manage communication on your behalf with the seller, reminding them how to get their property ready for imagery.
Nice.
So that there is some communication that goes out to them that says, hey, don't leave the underwear on the bed, please. It may not look good in the photos, that kind of thing. And sort of, help support getting it ready to have a better experience for the imagery to be better.
Right.
So we manage that on your behalf, and then we send you the links, and it's yours. You can download everything that's on there and you own it.
Underwear removal not included.
Yes, underwear. Right. We don't touch anything.
We ain't touching the drawers.
Jessica, you had a question?
Yes, so the photography appointment, we schedule that between the agent, the seller, and your company?
Correct. Actually, our property data collector will reach out to the point of contact that you give when you place the order and schedule it directly. It's a concierge level phone call.
And then they arrive on site and do all of the photos, correct? I mean, I know that seems maybe not a good question.
So we have a whole thing that we will give you and we give to your customer that sets their expectations. The property data collector is on site for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, depending, and it will not look or feel anything like what your traditional thought process is for a photography session. This is data collection with imagery. In fact, I'm doing one with Tony here, and when are we doing it? Next week, something like that?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're doing one with Tony next week, so you can ask him how it went for him after that.
So property data collector, that's the term.
That is the term. And what
Not photographer, but property data collector.
That's correct. And we use the term imagery, not photography, because
Okay.
otherwise your homeowner thinks someone's going to show up with cameras, and our people will not be showing up with cameras and stuff. And I have a fun little thing. You guys can all become property data collectors if you so choose. I'm going to leave this here with Clark. Our property data collectors are quite frequently agents who are making extra money on the side to conduct the property data collection in those properties. And there's a way to get certified for that, which then you
Interesting.
can be the property data collector for your own imagery. So now you are providing additional service that way, and you can make sure that anything you think special about that property gets into
Ooh.
photos
Really?
and get paid to do it, or at least, you know.
Mhm.
So, part of why I wanted both Jen and Alan here is because I'm challenging you to try and up the game on your listings, because it's a competitive market, and if you can't list, you can't last. And when you have the listings, you control the market. So we're not only trying to help you understand not only what a product like this can do for your seller, but as you are working with your buyers, making the request for something like this on the other side as part of your negotiation, or helps in your negotiation, helps solidify it, helps solidify a stronger presence in your negotiations when you have some of this knowledge behind you. So seeing where that plays out, or how that plays out, is important. But the other end of it is when you've got something like this that more details what the property is, what it looks like, where value is, your seller has a better understanding of where they are in their market position. In other words, what are we looking at? How can we improve the days on the market? In other words, shorter days of time on the market, in order to get a strong offer that better represents where the true value is of the property. And as part of that, sellers are looking to not only get out of where they're at, but find another place. Even where interest rates are right now, we still have sellers who want to move up or move across or potentially downsize. So the market still exists. There's still transactions going on. And to answer that, or to bring that kind of full circle, I wanted Alan to talk about a program that Planet offers that can position your seller to be more ready to make that next move. So I'm gonna go see if you can take some of this and bring it over to what
Thank
you're
you.
talking about.
So the questions that we talked about earlier, if you have a seller who is also a buyer, what are they going to do with their current home? Do they have the income? Do they have the cash? Do they have the ability to buy the next home without selling their current home? If they do, great. Then they have to understand, well, what's my appetite? What's my risk appetite? How long do I want to make 2 mortgage payments? And if I'm taking the down payment out of a investment account, a brokerage account, what's my cost there? Taking it out of the market where it might be making more money than an interest rate would charge. So what Planet has done is we have a big fund that we're using to buy houses. If your seller wants to buy a resale home, we can, and this is just conventional financing. This is not FHA, this is not VA. Okay, so just conventional. We will make a cash offer on their home if they have enough equity. The cash offer is up to 80% of the home value. What's the value? We just talked about how to get the value. Once we have that value, then we will offer up to 80%. And to get the borrower off the hook, if they don't have the income to qualify for the new house without selling the current house, well, now they have a cash offer. We can remove that mortgage payment from their debt to income ratio so they can qualify for the new house. Once they do that, they have 120 days post closing to sell that house. So we don't buy it until the 120th day. So the clock's ticking. As soon as we make that offer and they go under contract and they close on their new home, they have 120 days to sell it. And if they don't sell it on day 120, we'll buy it for 80 up to 80 cents on the dollar.
So if you use our product, you have the data collection for Alan to get the appraisal to tell you what that 80% looks like. Plus you have all this fabulous marketing to sell it for more than what he's willing to pay it you
Yep.
for it during those 120 days.
Yep. It's a stronger offer than any of the other cash wholesale buyers out there, like Mark Spain or what's the big one that a lot of people are using?
Open Door.
Open Door.
Any of those folks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking. Open Door. If your home's listed on the market for 1 day, the Open Door listing isn't anywhere near 80%. They might be closer to 60 or 70%. They're looking for homes that aren't listed. So that's if you're buying a resale home. You have plenty of time to get it sold. But what's the drawback? Well, you have to keep making 2 house payments until your current house sells. So they have to be able to have the appetite to make those payments. If they need the cash to put down on the new house before they sell their current house, we also can combine that with our bridge loan, which goes up to 80%. So if they need the bridge and they need us to remove that payment from the equation, then they need to have more equity. So that's an ideal situation for someone that's been in their home for a while, that's looking to upsize or downsize. Yep. There's no payments on the bridge loan. It's interest only. The interest accrues while we're waiting to get that house sold. So they're not making 3 house payments, they're making 2 during that time. So that's the only downside to it, is they may not want to make 2 house payments, but it is an option for them to be competitive in a market where 30% is cash. Now, that's resale. What if they want to buy new construction from a builder? Are builders taking contingent offers today, Clark?
They are.
The builders that I work with they took contingent offers, but they're dealing with a lot of fallout from it because the houses haven't sold. In one case, it's been 6 months. In another case, it's been 8 months. And the builders are regretting taking these offers because they've had their house tied up, which could have experienced price increases. And but they're reluctant to kill the deal and take the binder because that usually isn't good business. So that's where I've come into play with the builder. We'll also buy the house up to 80%. We close on it a week before. We buy the house a week before they close on their new construction home, and they have another week to move out. So they have 14 days to do that. We don't need to worry about a bridge because they're getting the cash out when we buy it. Here's the cool part is when Planet goes to resell it, we list it with the same agent. So you stay involved, and the person that we bought the house from, we split the profits with them when we sell it, 80-20 in their favor. So they get paid when we buy it, and then they get paid a second time when we sell it, which is unheard of. The other competitors that are doing this in the market are not splitting profits with them after the fact. So, but that's just on new construction because we're not giving them 120 days. That is it in a nutshell. It's called Purchase Edge and Purchase Edge Guarantee. And we're the only lender that's doing this in the country.
Pretty awesome.
Yep. It's one of the reasons why we work where we work is because of this program. It's needed in the market. It's the least expensive option in the market, and it's really helping a lot of people be competitive and get their next home. The buyer's remorse part is real though. So if it's someone that's been in their home since 21, in the last 4 or 5 years, then we have that, I have that conversation with them really and let them know, hey, you know, how much equity do you really have in your current house? And we go through those steps and I show them all the numbers so they can make an educated decision on what they want to do. Any questions?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of talking. Let's see if we can open it up for questions. Is there someone that has a question, wants to raise their hand or turn on their mic and ask a question of Jen or Alan or myself or somebody else on the window?
Oh, and it goes up to, there is a price point limit, which is 800,000.
Hmm.
800,000.
Okay.
Yep, sorry.
So close. You better
So
reconsider that.
Hazel's average 2 million sales price would be a different program.
Anyone? Any questions you want to throw out? Again, we're really working to try and assist you in putting your plan together for your sellers. There needs to be that question and answer period when you're developing your value with your sellers that says, you know, what's your next steps? How can I help you? Here are resources that I have that I think will be beneficial. Using this product over here, we can get a almost an appraisal that we can then share with the buyer's lender. Correct? Is that okay to say?
Yes,
Okay.
well, yeah, yes, the data collection they can share the appraisal too, but. Yeah.
Right, but the lender,
Right.
you know, we can help, with the buyer on the other side, understanding where some of the opportunities might be. Okay, the phone numbers, please. All right, so Christy was asking, this has been very helpful. I will, Jen's
Hi, Christy.
phone number is 248, no.
The
No,
Ninja,
no, no.
Ninja is here.
Mine is 904.
Okay, you tell them.
Oh, my phone number, if you need it, is 904-866-9291. And if you're interested in ordering any of these packages, I can give you the link to go ahead and do that until such time that we have a custom link just for Legends.
Okay, why don't you send me that and I'll send it to all these people.
Yeah, thank you, Clark. If you can send that to us, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I will do that. I will send you the link to do that. And then Christy had also said, do you reach out to Alan for desktop appraisal? Wait, I'm sorry. Do you reach out to Alan for desktop appraisal?
Yes.
Yes, you can. Or finding out about desktop appraisal.
Yes.
Okay, could you please
You want
add
to
the
type
link?
in
Sure.
chat?
Sure, I will type the link in the chat. Let me go ahead and put the link in the chat. The link is,
Jennifer.
oh God,
How do you spell that?
JENNIFERTOSSAVAINEN.
See, we worked together for.
Wow.
Dot remark.
That was-
REMARK.
Dot SO.
.so. Okay, this is the connection for Jen. And Jen's phone number is, Jen is 904-866.
66 9291.
9291. Okay, that's Jen. Alan's number is 800. No,
20.
that's your other door.
Nine,
Okay,
that's, it's a 900 number.
900 number. 900. Okay, 904.
If you want to talk mortgages late at night.
Oh, 1-900. All right, so 904
705
705
2086.
2086. This is Alan's number. All right. So that's in the chat if you would like it. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
And
Any-
what is the name of your company, Jennifer?
I work for the bigger company that I work for is Class Valuation.
Class Valuation?
Right.
Class.
And then it's,
Class Valuation.
Class is in session.
Yes, class is
or
in
classes
session.
in Class C. Okay, or it's the other.
And the mechanism by which you can order the product right now is through Remark. That's why you have that link. And
Okay, great. And it's called, what did you call the name of the technician or person that comes out to the property again? I'm sorry.
Data collector.
Data collector.
Property data collector, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
If any of you have an interest in earning a little extra money on that, I left the information here with Clark on how you can do that.
I will scan it and send it to all those who were in attendance today. Anything else that we can answer for you about this, or something that's come up recently that you want to throw out there for feedback or information purposes? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time, whether on the road, in the road, or over the road. So be careful, have a good day, drive safely. Hope you have good real estate business. If there's something we can help you with, let us know. I'm going to go ahead and stop the chat, or excuse me, stop the recording.